The night had already fallen into an unnatural stillness when Michael Harris heard it. A desperate, breathless whisper slicing through the cold alleys like a cry leaking from the darkness itself. For hours he had been walking with his backpack hanging off one shoulder, the worn straps cutting into his skin, searching for a safe place for him and his 9-year-old daughter to sleep. But the moment he heard the trembling words, everything inside him stilled. In the shadow between two abandoned warehouses, two tiny silhouettes shivered violently, their eyes wide, faces streaked with grime and tears. He froze, breath caught in his chest, realizing instantly that these weren't just lost children. They were terrified, and they were begging for someone to save them before something unspeakable caught up. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of doing the right thing even when you have nothing, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories of hope reach more hearts. The wind rattled broken metal signs as Michael forced his tired legs forward. His instincts, sharpened by years of military service, flared painfully alive. Even after everything he'd been through, losing his home, living out of shelters, doing odd jobs to feed his daughter, he had never ignored a cry for help. And tonight, he felt something deeper, something urgent, something wrong, as though the darkness around them was holding its breath. The twins, maybe 7 or 8, clung to each other like their lives depended on it. When the boy saw Michael, he stepped forward just slightly, his thin body trembling so hard that Michael could see it even in the dim light. The girl hid behind her brother, sobbing silently, clutching the edge of her torn sweater as if it could shield her from whatever horror lurked close behind. Michael knew that look. He had seen it overseas in children who had escaped danger, kids whose eyes held stories too heavy for their age. It was a look that told him one thing: these children had no one, and they had run from something they wouldn't survive if they went back. Despite the exhaustion weighing on him, despite the bone-deep fear that helping them might put his own daughter at risk, he knelt down and softened his voice. The boy's eyes darted repeatedly toward the end of the alley, as though he was expecting someone to burst through the shadows at any second. That fear confirmed everything. Something awful had happened. Something urgent. Something he couldn't walk away from. Michael's hands shook slightly as memories flashed, memories of the military, of moments when he had to make quick decisions and pray they were right. He could hear the pounding of his own heart as he tried to assess what danger was near and whether the twins had been followed. But what shook him even more was the realization that this moment, terrifying as it was, felt like a strange echo of his own past. He had once been the child desperate for saving, then the soldier desperate to save others. Now he was a single father desperate to protect his daughter at all costs. And yet, when these children looked at him with raw terror, he knew he would protect them too, no matter the risk. The twins, still shaking, lifted their hands toward him without speaking. Their trust was instant, heartbreaking, and heavy with fear. Michael wrapped his coat around their shoulders, ignoring the creeping ache in his chest. Training kicked in. He scanned the alley, listening for footsteps, for voices, for anything out of place. His daughter, asleep against a nearby brick wall wrapped in blankets, stirred slightly, sensing the tension in the air. He knew he had to move them all fast. The cold was biting, but the danger behind the twins was far colder. He carried one child in each arm, heavier than they looked because of the way they clung to him. His daughter walked close to his side, eyes wide with worry, trusting him completely. As they hurried down the alley, Michael's mind turned rapidly. He didn't know who had taken these children or why they had escaped. But he knew one thing with certainty: their kidnappers wouldn't give up easily. People who stole children never stopped searching, and the thought sent a tremor of rage through him. The darkness of the city felt too wide, too quiet, almost as if it was hiding predators waiting for a chance to pounce. Michael decided to bring them to an old underpass where he sometimes sheltered. It wasn't warm, and it wasn't safe, but it was hidden and shielded from sight. They could stay there until sunrise, then he would find a police station. As he laid the twins down gently on makeshift bedding, he noticed marks on their wrists, fresh rope burns. His heart clenched. Whatever they'd escaped from had been violent. The girl curled into a tight ball, shaking uncontrollably, while the boy tried to stay awake, his small face set in fear far too mature for his age. Michael sat in front of them, positioning himself like a shield. His daughter sat beside him, leaning gently against the girl, trying to comfort her. In that cold, forgotten tunnel, a strange sense of family began to form, one built not by blood, but by shared fear, shared softness, shared survival. The night outside roared with distant traffic, but inside, the sounds were smaller, soft sniffles, trembling breaths, and the steady, reassuring heartbeat of a father who had nothing left but the instinct to protect. As the children finally drifted to sleep, exhaustion overwhelmed him, but he stayed awake, fighting off every urge to close his eyes. His thoughts drifted to his own struggles, how he had lost his home after medical bills piled up when his wife fell sick, how he had used every bit of savings for her care until it was gone, and how he had held her hand as she slipped away, leaving him with a daughter who depended on him completely. He hadn't had time to grieve. Life had been a non-stop battle since then. Yet, watching the twins breathe steadily, their small faces relaxing for the first time, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. Just before sunrise, the sharp crunch of footsteps echoed faintly from above. A deep voice barked orders. More footsteps. Heavy ones. Organized. Michael's blood ran cold. They had been found. The twins woke instantly, their eyes filling with terror. And for one heart-stopping second, Michael considered fleeing deeper into the underpass, disappearing into the labyrinth of pipes and shadows. But he knew it wouldn't work. If these men had tracked the children this far, they wouldn't stop. And disappearing into danger was no way to protect kids who had already lived through too much. So, he straightened his shoulders, told his daughter to hide behind the pillars with the twins, and moved forward. His heart pounded like a war drum as the voices grew louder. The instinct to protect blazed inside him like a wildfire. He didn't have weapons. He didn't have backup. But he had something the kidnappers didn't expect: a soldier's resolve and a father's fury. When the first man stepped into the tunnel, flashlight scanning the ground, Michael moved without hesitation. He lunged, using the element of surprise, taking the man down in a swift, fierce motion he hadn't used in years. The flashlight clattered across the pavement, rolling toward the sleeping children, but stopping inches before revealing them. Another man shouted, but Michael's voice thundered louder, driven by desperation and courage that came from the deepest part of him. The kidnappers weren't expecting a fight. They weren't expecting a man with nothing to lose, everything to protect, and enough skill to hold them off long enough for help to come. One of the men retreated, yelling for someone to call for backup. The sound of retreating footsteps echoed down the tunnel, and Michael felt a surge of hope. He grabbed the flashlight and motioned to the children to follow him, Hearts pounding, they ran toward the street where early morning commuters were beginning to move. When people saw the bruised, terrified children, someone immediately called the police. Within minutes, squad cars arrived, flashing their lights across the pavement. The kidnappers were caught not far from the underpass, thanks to the description Michael provided. The twins were safe, really safe, for the first time in days. But when the police took down Michael's information, their expressions changed. Word spread about what he had done. As paramedics checked the twins, the little girl reached out, grabbing Michael's sleeve tightly, refusing to let go until she heard an officer promise that he wasn't being taken away. The boy told the officers that Michael had saved them, that he was the bravest person they'd ever met. Michael's daughter clung to his side proudly, her chin lifted high in a way he hadn't seen in a long time. When the twins' father arrived, an exhausted, frantic man who had been searching nonstop for days, he broke down upon seeing them alive. He hugged them with trembling arms, tears streaming down his face. When he learned what Michael had done, he walked straight to him and embraced him without hesitation. It was the kind of gratitude that sank into the soul. It made Michael feel, for the first time in years, like he had worth beyond his struggles, beyond his poverty, beyond his past. The twins' father insisted on helping him. At first, Michael refused. He wasn't used to receiving help, only giving it. But when the man saw the backpack, the blankets, the thinness in Michael's face, and the exhaustion in his daughter's eyes, he insisted gently but firmly. He offered them a place to stay temporarily, meals, access to resources, and even help with job placement. Slowly, cautiously, Michael accepted, not for himself, but for his daughter, who deserved better than cold nights and constant fear. Days passed, then weeks. Michael found work doing security at a community center, a place that welcomed veterans and gave him a chance to rebuild. His daughter began attending school regularly again, making friends, smiling more. And the twins visited often, bringing drawings, little gifts, and endless gratitude. They saw him as a hero, not because of strength or skill, but because he had risked everything for them when he had nothing at all. Their father helped Michael apply for housing assistance, and soon, Michael and his daughter moved into a small but warm apartment. The first night they slept there, his daughter cried quietly, not from fear, but from relief. Michael held her close, tears slipping down his own face, realizing that helping those twins had somehow saved him too. Because sometimes, in helping others, we rediscover ourselves. If this story touched your heart, even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Before we end, comment below, kindness.